This screencast supports this lesson, which is from Straightforward Elementary by Lindsay Clandfield, published by Macmillan. It's Unit 5C, and this is the student's book page. And you'll also need the teacher's book notes. There's lots of great information in here, ideas for how to set up activities, grammar reference information, and also the tape script, the recording script is here as well as all the answers to the activities. So I really recommend having a look at these excellent notes. There's several pages of them. All right, a quick overview of the aims of this material. The main aim is the grammar, past simple regular verbs. There's some control practice, some speaking practice based on questions, some nice work on pronunciation, and a nice speaking task to finish on. So it looks like there's plenty of practice there, which is great. So where does the grammar come from? Where's the context that has the examples of the grammar in it that shows the students the meaning? Here it is, okay? Reading and listening part here. That's the context for the grammar, so don't drop it, and make sure you use those examples when you're presenting the grammar. And there's a nice lead in at the beginning based on some speaking skills, and the whole topic is nice. It's about travel, so it should work well with most groups of students. All right, so the first activity, we want to get the students warmed up to the topic and activate ideas and vocabulary that's going to be useful through the lesson. So this is a very nice task, and I suggest you use it as it is. But you could start off by saying, "Oh, I've just been told I'm going to Washington for a few days. Wow, you know, what do you think I need to take with me? What shall I pack? What do you think I'm going to see there?" And then you can say, "Right, you're all going to come with me, okay?" And then show them a picture of all the things, and see if they can just identify them all. You can do that quite quickly as a class together if you like, or you can get them to try to write down the things next to the letters. In the chat perhaps check some spelling, that would be nice. There's obviously a problem here. This is a pretty old picture, isn't it? We've got an iPod, okay, we've got a very old phone, and we've got a dictionary, so I think this just needs updating. If I could just point out the fact that guidebook, iPod, tickets and torch are all in the reading that's coming up. So I suggest you include torch and guidebook and tickets. Let's leave iPod for later. It's getting to be a pretty old piece of kit, isn't it? So get them to identify the items first, and then tell them they need to just choose just 5. They've got a very small bag, okay? And you could model using this language here. I think the dictionary is a good idea because well, actually the dictionary isn't a good idea, is it? Because you're going to Washington, they speak English, so that should be fine. All right, so model the task there. Teacher's book's got some great notes on how to do this, so do have a look at that. So we're into the skills part of the lesson now. I suggest doing this as a reading, this first part, rather than reading and listening at the same time. Let's just do it as a reading. So a receptive skills lesson, we want to check that we set the scene, pre-teach any necessary vocabulary, have 2 tasks. The first one needs to be nice and easy, preferably encourage skimming skills, reading fast, and the second task more detailed, more slower reading, more careful. That's what we want, and I think we've got that here, so that's good. Have a look at the teacher's book notes for setting the scene. There's some really nice ideas in there, particularly about using flashcards, which relates mainly to classroom teaching, but you can definitely use that approach online as well. So set the scene, prepare them for what they're going to listen to. We need to activate schemata, okay, activate background knowledge so that they know what's coming at them, then they'll understand it better. The first task is who packed the bags. So as I said, let's do it as a reading. Let's just give them 1 minute to read and see who packed the bags. Challenge them to read quickly. Get them to peer check, say talk together, what was your answer, and then come in and check together. We've obviously got iPod in here that I mentioned earlier, so maybe before they read you could just show a picture of one and say they talk about this in the reading. Do you know what it is? It's an iPod. We used to use it way back in the 20th century for, for listening to music. Maybe some of the students will recognise it. The second task is here. They need to tick the things that they have in the car. Okay, so set the task, get them to read and say, right, what's the first thing we're going to tick? What's the first thing? And they might say computer, but that's not actually in the car. So get to the point where you're ticking the first thing that's in the car, and then you can say, right, now I want you to do the rest by yourself. Tick the things that you find in the car. Nice reign of silence while students work for a few minutes, and then you can say, do you need one more minute? No? Okay, great. Talk together. What are your answers? Get them to peer check, and then come in and check as a class. Just to round it off, there's a very nice short audio you can play, which means we can poke fun at Walter because he forgot the passports when they get to the airport. So you can say, I'm going to play you another part of the conversation between Thelma and Walter. They're at the airport now. What's the problem? Listen. What's the problem? Okay, and then play that audio to round off this skills section. All right, here's the grammar part. My assumption is that the students will have some knowledge of the past simple, and therefore I'm not going to treat them like empty vessels. I'm going to find out what they know. So we're going to adopt a guided discovery approach, all right, where the students who know the rules can display that, and where the students who don't know the rules can work it out for themselves. So we need more examples first. So I suggest 2 examples of a positive, 2 examples of a negative, 2 examples of the question form on a slide without the rules, okay, just the sentences. Then add some questions to focus on meaning. They could be something like, these sentences talk about now, true or false, or it could be, do these sentences talk about now or talk about the past? Are these sentences talking about things that are finished or not finished? And then you could even move on to start asking about form. Does anybody know the name of this tense? Okay, get the students to talk together to answer those questions. Those who know will teach the others, and you can listen in and see what the level of knowledge is like. And then you want to clarify the rules. So you could go in and check the answers to the meaning questions, and then you could say, okay, how do we use the past simple? How do we make the past simple? Talk together. How do we make the positive and the negative in the question? And see what the students say. Try and get them talking together, or try to elicit it from them. Again, they're looking at those 6 sentences as examples. So they're looking at the sentences and talking about how to make them. Then feedback will be getting this information out, okay, how we form these positive, negative and question forms. Then at the end, can you add another stage, please? Perhaps put up a couple more verbs. Definitely include the verbs take and write, because they're coming up later in the lesson. And maybe go, because that's a very common irregular verb form. And you can say, are these verbs the same? Do we add ed to these? Do we use didn't for the negative? What do you think? And then hopefully they'll say, no, the past of go is went, and take is took, and write is wrote. And those are irregular verbs, okay? Don't worry too much about pronunciation. You could drill a few of the sentences that are coming up in the next activity, or you could just drill a few of the verbs that you notice students are having problems with. There is quite a big pronunciation section coming up later, so don't worry too much. But the students now need to get into practice. Keep the clarification stage as short as possible, so we maximise the amount of time for practice. First one, simple gap fill. Can they manipulate the form? Do the first one together, and then let them work alone, and then peer check and feedback. It's following on the story about Walter and Thelma. And then we've got a couple of really nice speaking activities. Okay, so exercise 2 uses the picture from the very first part of the lesson. So you'll need to liaise with that teacher and make sure you have a copy of that picture. And I would act it out. I would say, I'm going to write down 5 of the things in the picture, and then act out writing them down. And then you can say, I want you to ask me questions to find out what I wrote down. I might use the verb write down rather than pack, but That's just because pack's jarring with me a bit, but feel free to use packed, it's absolutely fine. So I would say, okay, so I've written down 5 things. Ask me a question, and I can say yes or no. So did you pack the passport? Yes, I did, or no, I didn't. And please stick with these, yes, I did, no, I didn't. They're called short answers, and they're more natural than, yes, I packed my passport. Okay, so demonstrate it first, and then get the students to do the same thing. Write down 5 things, and then ask the questions. So really think about how you're going to stage that task. The next one, the stages of this one are make the questions first, check the questions together, and then demonstrate asking and answering the questions, and then put the students into pairs to do that, again focusing on short answers. I think it would be nice to drill a couple of these questions before you set the students off into pairs, just to get the rhythm right. Did you watch television? Did you go on the internet? Whatever the answers with that one is. Did you play football? Did you take out the rubbish? Do you see there's a rhythm to it? Did you study English? Did you cook dinner? Yep, so drill a few of those questions before they use them. Here's the pronunciation section. It works very nicely. Just follow it through exactly as it is. The only thing I would say is that there are 3 endings for these past simple regular verbs. There's t, d, or id. The t, d rules are complex. They're in the teacher's book notes, but they're complex. So the only one you really need to clarify is the use of id. Okay, and that is clarified here. All right, and then otherwise just going through these activities here to raise awareness of the endings of the past simple. Teacher's book notes are really clear on this, so I'll leave it to the teacher's book notes to guide you through. There's a nice task here to finish up with. I'm making this screencast in 2021 and nobody did anything last year in 2020. So think about what the students are going to talk about. Is it going to be 2019 or whatever? And first stage would be to make the questions. Get the students to write down the questions, okay, and then check them. And then you want to demonstrate this task nice and clearly. Teacher's book notes again are really good about this, so have a look at that, but you want to demonstrate. Demonstration is much more powerful than explanation, basically. So I would say, right, you are going to ask me the questions and I will tell you my answers, and one thing will be not true. Okay, it will be a lie. All right. Okay. Ask me the questions. Get the students asking you. Lie about one of them, and then at the end you can say, "Okay, what was the lie? Do you know?" Okay, and then you can just say, "Right now, I want you to do the same. Make sure that you give one lie when you're answering." Breakout rooms, pop them in. They could do this activity more than once if you give them a new partner, so that would be great. Repetition builds fluency. And then at the end, get them back in the main room and say, okay, what did you learn about your partner? Was it easy to find the lies? So some feedback on ideas first before you do some feedback on accuracy. So hopefully you've noted some errors and some examples of good language use to share with the students. You can share that on a Word document, or you can simply type in some sentences into the chat for them to look at, decide whether they're correct or not correct, and correct them. Okay, and that is the end of the lesson.